Welcome. I'm the Deadwood Jedi, and we are in a blank void today. Actually, it's a written void, as we just got a new update highlight. So the new 3.4 update is coming out shortly, and so they've given us the highlight. I figured we'd go over it because the big thing is it's going to be showing us the new Shadowkin faction and all their champions. So I figured we could go over that together. I literally have not read these guys. This is going to be my absolute first look at it, so I'll try and come up with the best things I can think of for this while we're doing it, but hence the glasses. I'm going to be reading with you guys. We're going to kind of see what there is here, how it works, and how these champions interact together. Before we get too deep into it, one thing I do want to point out. These are a couple other things that are being added. The champion tag should be added in this. That's going to be, just part of it. So we'll have that going on. We're also going to have the Doom Tower on either difficulty. We'll get special avatars. That's pretty cool. When you complete it on either difficulty, players won't receive Doom Tower related advanced quests before the Doom Tower is available to them. So that's just a fix, I guess. Clan boss reward chest will show all possible rewards on a tap, so you can know what's available there. And there's going to be moderators in the in-game chat. So a couple quality of life stuff with that. But let's go ahead and look at the champions here and see what they're bringing in. So obviously they have the description of the Shadowkin. I'll let you guys read that. I'll have a link to this down below in the description and comments of this video if you want to check it out yourself. We also have Genzin today. So this is going to be one of the legendary champions from Spirit Affinity, of the Shadowkin, attack type champions. I think we're going to see a lot of that. This is my guess about what we're going to be having here. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit fills his champion's turn meter by 6%. That's cool. I mean, getting an 18% turn meter boost on the A1 is great. It's not linked to critting. That's really nice, so it's a steady thing. That means it's going to be getting a lot of extra turn meter boosts. That's actually really great. Taxel on the A2, Taxel enemies has 75% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff on 2 turns. That does book up to 100%, and that cooldown, the 4-turn cooldown, goes down to 3. Each critical hit fills its champion's turn meter by 10%. Again, the crit hit thing, as you know, not a fan of that, but that's really cool. Great. Decreased defense on the A2. Excellent, excellent. It's an AoE too, which is really nice. Each critical hit, that means the turn meter boost is going to depend on how many enemies you're facing. So that can actually be really nice. Obviously, Affinity is going to have a major impact on that, but that means he's getting a lot of turn meter in this build. Fated Vengeance, A3. Attacks one enemy, will ignore unkillable buffs and shield buffs. Fills his champion's turn meter by 30%. Okay. Fills his champion's turn meter by 60% instead if the target has a 50% HP or less after this attack. Also decreases the cooldown of Steel Parting and Fated Vengeance skills by 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. Oh, God. Sometimes I read these kits and I'm just like, how am I supposed to put this in the calculator? Okay, cool. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a crazy powerful skill. This is every 3 turns, by the way. Increases champion speed by 10%, and resilience by 50 if there are fewer champions on this champion's team than the number of enemies on the enemy team. This effect always works when fighting bosses. Increases champion speed by 10 and resistance by 50 if there are fewer champions on this champion's team than the number of enemies on the enemy team. I'm really curious as to how that's what you're supposed to do with that. Are you supposed to bring that in on... Are you supposed to try and solo dungeons with them? I'm confused as to what we would use Bushido for. It's an interesting passive ability. Do you start running 3-person arena teams? I mean, that's a huge turn meter boost. Well, I guess it's only a speed boost by 10 and resistance by 50, so it's nothing crazy, but it's a very strange passive. Very strange passive. I'm not sure what the intended purpose of that is, but okay, that's a thing. That's a thing. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's very interesting. There's a lot of cool stuff in this. I actually really like this champion a lot. You basically have turn meter boost on every single one of these skills, which is really strong. This A3 being able to ignore unkillable and shield buff is really strong. Even as a single target ability, that's a really, really strong skill. and I'm really interested. And now the multipliers are what's going to matter for this. I'm assuming they're going to be good, but because of the turn meter boosting, because there's so many attacks, if it's a little bit lower, that's obviously going to have less import. But if this guy can hit, if the multipliers are good on those attacks, I see him being really, really strong in pretty much all areas of the game. Yoshi the Drunkard, this is obviously the Fragment Fusion champion that we're going to be getting later on. As we know, it's got a stun chance on the A1. It does book up to 40%. He's got an increase, attacks 2 times at random, 75% chance placing decreased accuracy and HP burn. Those do book up to 100%, and they do cool this skill down to a 2-turn cooldown. So I had a feeling that might go down to 2 turns. It does. That's going to mean you're going to be able to use that over and over and over again. That's a really interesting ability there. And then the A3 places increased attack and increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns, and 50% chance of placing True Fear becomes 75% when under increased accuracy, and those both increase by 25%. So 100% chance if someone has increased accuracy buff, or 75% otherwise once booked, and it does book to a 3-turn cooldown. Very interesting. This I feel like is an arena skill right here. This I actually feel is a pretty good what do you call it, boss skill. For dungeons, specifically Doom Tower. I can see this being really effective. We're seeing HP burn being really good against Agrath, the Nether Spider, as well as the Frost Spider. So with the decreased accuracy, that helps as far as landing debuffs and stuff like that, making sure that your champions aren't taking a bunch of them. This could be really, really good. The low cooldown, 2 turns, is really short, so that's nice. The passive fills the champion's turn meter by 4% each time an enemy receives a buff. Obviously, we know how strong Valkyrie is. This is going to be a weaker version of that, but still, I think, pretty effective. And then has an aura that gives you speed in all battles by 19%. Again, really nice. So, yeah, lots of good things to like in that. Jintaro, interesting champion here. We got another legendary. By the way, so this is going to be the Fragment Fusion. I think it's worth fusing, obviously. I think it's worth getting the fragments for. At the very least, he's one of only a few Shadowkin champions, so you're going to want to get him just based off of that. But also, I feel like there's enough interesting stuff in the kit. I feel like the cooldowns are low enough where it makes it worth it. Now, obviously, again, the books, these people just love reading like crazy. We got 14 books right here. That's ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous amount of books. We've got another 13 books here, another ridiculous amount. I don't like it, but I don't think it's changing anytime soon. Jintaro grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy on the A1. Sure, that's fine. Blood Freeze attacks when enemy steals 100% of the target's turn meter. That's always a strong ability. Decrease. You can see that ability on Maneater, for example. Decreases the cooldown of Oni Rage by 1 if the target is immune to turn meter reduction effects. So, okay, interesting. There's only one champion that I'm aware of that has that, and that's the Archmage. So that's interesting, though, that they have that. It does go down to a 3-turn cooldown when booked. And then Oni's Rage, attack when enemy places a decreased defense and a weakened debuff for 2 turns. Oh, against bosses, too. That's interesting. Okay. Will attack 5 times instead of 1 on every 4th use of this skill against the same target in 1 round. Wow. Okay. That's really interesting. It does book down to a 3-turn cooldown. That's an interesting thing, making it a 5-attack hit on every 4th use of this skill. So 1, 2, 3. So you're talking basically like it comes out to 2 attacks, right? Nothing super crazy, but that's interesting. And passive, all turn meter fill effects are increased by 50% when used on this champion. Well, okay. Well, that's interesting. So if you get a turn meter boost, it's twice as effective on Oni. That's actually really interesting. I can see this being really good in Arena as a result of that. Assuming these things can hit hard, that turn meter boost you get from Arbiter or whoever is going to be twice, or maybe not twice as effective, but 25% more effective. 50% more effective, I guess, really, on this champion. That's crazy. That's crazy. Increase ally attack in all battles by 29%. Always a solid aura. Always solid. This is interesting. Interesting champion. I'm not sure where we're going to find this best in. I do feel like with this skill, with these 2 skills, there's definitely some clan boss possibilities here. We'd be reducing the cooldown of Oni's Rage. It still gets gated by this, though, so it's still basically a 3-turn cooldown. But having a decreased defense and weaken on a 3-turn cooldown is great, and it places it. So, you know, there's no percentage chance it fails. The only thing you'll probably still need accuracy for it. But that's a really, really interesting champion. Will depend on how hard they hit, but that's always good. Can definitely see it being used in a lot of difference. So those are the 3 legendaries we have. Then we have Sachi here at Epic with another 1,000,000 books needed. So we got, what, 15 books. Unbelievable. 15 books, Force Champion support. Attacks all enemies. AoE on the A1, that's always nice. With the 40% chance placing decreased accuracy, books up to 50% chance. That's good. A2 is attacks one enemy, 75% chance placing decreased crit rate and leech. Always good skills. It books down, again, is this right? Does it book down to a 2-turn cooldown? That's really short, 2-turn cooldown. And it books up to 100% chance. So that's really nice. And then Shadow Ambush, increase attack buff on all allies, and then attacks one enemy. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 20% chance if this attack is critical. This books down to a 3-turn cooldown. I mean, that's really nice, right? So we got that's 3 really good, useful skills I can see being great in all areas of the game. And then passive, revives an ally with 30% HP whenever this champion kills an enemy. Has a 50% chance of placing a fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn whenever an ally is revived. So that's cool. I mean, you know, the passive, you know, revive off of a kill thing, we've seen that in a few champions. Alton comes to mind immediately. It's definitely good and nice to have. It's hard to rely upon, but increase attack for all allies plus a turn meter boost is really nice. You know, this decreased crit rate and leech, those can be really strong abilities. Decreased accuracy, also really strong. AoE skill on that A1 is nice. There's a lot to like here. This is a 3-turn cooldown when booked. This is a 2-turn cooldown when booked. Again, the 2-turn thing when you have a 3-turn skill that's probably going to take higher priority is always a weird combination. But, you know, once we can assign the skill usage on our own, maybe that becomes even more valuable for us. So there's a lot of good possibilities with her. I like that a lot. I like that champ. Obero, another Void Epic champion. Let's see here. God, the books. This is going to be a thing, guys. I hate it, but it's going to be a thing. So another 15 books here. A1, decreased defense. Books up to 50% chance. Attacks all enemies instead if the target's under 4 or more debuffs. So that's interesting. So if you attack somebody that's already got a lot of debuffs, then you can get an AoE out of that. Pretty cool, A1. A2, attacks one enemy 2 times. Each second hit has a 75% chance of transferring all debuffs from this champion to the target. Okay, a lot like, I guess a champion that has that is Lysandra. Really good. And first hit has a 75% chance of stealing all buffs from the target when attacking under a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. So she's going to benefit a lot from Veil or Perfect Veil. And we can bump this up to 100% chances on both of those when booked. Cool down to 3 turns. This also cools down to 3 turns. Increased crit rate buff, increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns, then attacks one enemy, places a Perfect Veil on this champion for 2 turns if this attack is critical. So, I mean, getting a crit, having yourself put Perfect Veil on, and then coming in after that and transferring debuffs, stealing buffs, those are really good. And then you just, you know, decrease defense is the A1. Not bad. Not bad skills. In the passive here, places Revive on Death buff on this champion for 3 turns whenever they are on a Veil or Perfect Veil. That's going to help keep her alive. Ally attack in dungeons by 33%. Depending on the multipliers that she does, how hard she truly hits is obviously going to be a very good arena champion. Probably a pretty good dungeon champion, honestly. I don't see her particularly being great on bosses, but, you know, there's a chance with that. But definitely I think on dungeon waves, Doom Tower waves, that kind of stuff, she could be really good. Taragi the Frog, Epic Magic Champion. Let's see. Decrease attack debuff on the A1. Okay. Books up to 40%. Attacks all enemies. AoE Provoke on the A2. 50% chance. It increases by 5% for each debuff on the enemy team. So debuffs as a team, I guess, maybe not individuals. That's something we'll have to test and make sure. Does book down to a 3-turn cooldown. We only need 13 books for this champion. Sweet. And then you have Bog Blessing, places a shield buff equal to 15% of this champion's max HP and a 50% ally protection buff on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. Okay. Cool. Ally protection is great. With a shield buff is actually pretty nice. Also heals this champion by 25% of their max HP and places a reflect damage buff on them for 3 turns. Oh, that's interesting. By placing that reflect damage buff, I think we can actually probably avoid this target getting stunned if we try to bring him into clan boss. The heal increases by 2.5% for each poison debuff on the enemy team. Interesting. Okay. When attacked, has a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. Occurs once per hit. That passive, that's, wow. Increases ally resistance in all battles by 40%. Okay, guys, okay. So, Taragi the Frog. Obviously, the idea is he's this poisonous frog, right? Every time you hit him, you take some damage. You take some poison. But this guy just might be one of the best clan boss champions I've seen in a while. The cooldowns are 3-turn cooldowns. You got a decreased attack on the A1. Now, to be fair, it's 40% chance. It's 1 attack. It doesn't seem like it's a super, like, you know, reliable thing. But as a secondary decreased attack champion, that's not bad. The AoE on the A2, it's not going to have any impact on clan boss, obviously. But this skill, Bog Blessing, places a shield buff equal to 15% of the champion's max HP and a ally protection buff on all allies. Those are 2 quality skills that can be really useful for you in clan boss. The reflect damage is not particularly helpful as far as doing damage, but it does mean that we can avoid this. It can help with stun targeting, and typically you want a champion like this not to take the stun, right? So that would actually be really useful. The heal increases by 2.5% for each poison debuff on the enemy team. That's why I'm like, oh, clan boss is a thing. So he heals him by 25% chance of their max HP, which is great. And that's just going to go higher with the poison. So we're talking, you know, you get even 2 poisons, all of a sudden 30%. It's going to boost up a lot. So that could be really, really nice, I think. And then his passive ability here, every time he's attacked, has a 50% chance of a big poison debuff being placed on the attacker, occurs once per hit. Think about Affinity Clan Boss, how many attacks you're getting, like 4 on the A1, 2 on the A2. That's a lot of, you know, up to 6 poisons in a cycle. 50% chance, so maybe you're averaging about 3, but that's still pretty great as a passive ability right there. This guy looks good. He looks really good. All right, moving on. Chinoro. Shadowkin, Spirit Affinity. Attacks 1 enemy, 40% chance of placing a block debuff on for 2 turns. 1 enemy, sure. 50% chance it books up to. Reign of Fear attacks 3 times at random. Each hit is a 75% chance, books up to 100, placing a weakened debuff for 2 turns. It books down to a 3-turn skill. And then removes all increased defense buffs from all enemies, then attacks all enemies. This A3 is pretty interesting. Decreases the cooldown of Lay Bare by 1 turn for each enemy killed by the skill. So this books down to a 3-turn skill. If you kill 2 enemies, then the cooldown comes back. Removing all increased defense buff from enemies is a pretty useful skill. It's not a full cleanse though, but it just removes it. So I don't even know that you necessarily need accuracy for that to happen or not. That's going to be an important question for whether this is a useful skill or not. I'm not sure where or why you'd want to use this champion. Seems a little bit odd. Increased defense isn't the greatest threatening buff that enemies put on. So it's a little bit curious, I would say. You know, if it removed increased defense and counterattack, for example, that would be more interesting. Or increased defense and ally protection, that'd be more interesting. Or Veil, or, you know, something along those lines. But still, there's some interesting possibilities there. Not my favorite so far, but, you know, until we see the multipliers, it's hard to really know. Fanatic, okay. Let's see here. Decreased defense, great. A1, 30% decreased defense. So they have to have 2 or more debuffs for the big one. Okay, that's fine. This is a rare champion, so it's rare void support. Still, decreased defense on the A1, always solid. And the buff chance, the percentage chance books up to 40%. You know, only 10 books. It's better than what we've been dealing with, so... Is that right? 10 books? Oh, 11 books. Okay, yeah, still too many. Attacks 1 enemy, 75% chance of transferring 2 random debuffs from this champion to the target. Okay, that's fine, I guess. Books up to 100%. And then Rally Cry, basic, places an increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. Ascended places 50% increased attack buff on allies for 2 turns and removes 1 random debuff from each ally. So you get a little bit of a cleanse, 4-turn cooldown when booked. Yeah. All right. I mean, seems okay. Not somebody I'm particularly interested in. An AoE increased attack buff is solid, right? That could be useful. Life Taker. Here we go. Heal reduction 100% on the A1. Each hit, it books up to 40% chance, so 40% chance on a 2-hit attack. And then A2 is another 3-hit attack. Each hit has a 50% chance of decreasing target's turn meter by 10%. And third hit has a 50% chance of placing a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. So I can see this definitely being useful on, Fire Knight, for example. I'm not sure about the Affinity matchup, but decreasing turn meter is great. Books down to a 3-turn cooldown, so there's some potential there. Multi-attacks are good too. Diamond Body places a Veil buff on this champion for 1 turn, Reflect damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. So yeah, I see Fire Knight being a good spot for this champion for sure. Yeah, I mean, these book up to 75% chance for each of these skills here. Another 11 books, I think it is. Or 12 books. Even worse. Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's okay, I guess. Heal reduction, decreased turn meter, decreased speed, reflect damage. All those are useful skills. So, rare champion, not bad. Blood Mask, HP champion, okay. 35% chance of decreasing target's turn meter by 10%. Okay. Yeah, okay. Books up to 45% chance. Decreased turn meter on the A1's always solid. The low decreased speed debuff here on the A2. I'm not really seeing anything special about this. And a stun on the A3. I think this is the one that's interesting. Books up to 100% chance of placing a stun. It does book down to a 3-turn cooldown. Stun is super strong, obviously, in this game. And having a pretty much guaranteed chance is pretty great. That is the one skill that I think is useful. Again, 57,000 books, it looks like. So, there's a balance to that. What is it, 16 books, I think it is. So, I wouldn't be anxious to build this champion up, but that stun could be helpful. Definitely probably good for faction wars at the very least. And then we have a couple uncommon champions. This one has a weaken debuff on the A2, and this one has it's basically 2 chances of placing a small poison debuff for 2 turns. So I suppose if you really need that, if you really need to put the poisons out, Infiltrator might be interesting. He intrigues me a lot more than Conscript does, but yeah, those are the champions. So yeah, I don't know, kind of neat. We got some new champions coming in. I think a couple of them look really, really cool. I'm very, very interested in not Genzen so much or Yoshi, but I think Jintoro looks really interesting. There's a lot to be interested in that. I think Sachi looks amazing, and I think Obero's okay, but the one I'm really excited about is Taragi the Frog. I feel like there's a lot of potential in that. An alternate way to bring poison into your team. I feel like there's some real interesting, especially clan boss potential with that. So, I don't know, pretty cool. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. If you liked it, hit that subscribe and the notification bell. And until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.